Some say it's all about 1925 and beyond. The podcast. KC 100 year celebration with Pete A. Kennedy and Marlon A. Kennedy.
Welcome. It's the 1925 and Beyond podcast. I'm your co-host, Pete A. Kennedy. I'm here with big brother Marlon A. Kennedy. And as you can see, we're sitting beside each other because this week's session with all of our interviews is special. I am right here in the island of Jamaica, so you're getting it live and in living color as we both sit down and interview individuals who've gone through the great institution, KINGSTON College, over the last 100 years. So let me give you my credit. Went to KC 1992 towards 1995, 93 and 94 that played Colts, one Colts 1994, and in 95 played Manning Cup and moved down. But I'm not going to hold it up because we have a special guest today. But let me introduce you to big brother, co-host, Marlon A. Kennedy.
Welcome everybody, and thank you again for joining us another session of 1925 and Beyond podcast. It's our pleasure today to have another very important guest. You know, all our guests are important, but today it's also another special guest. The mere fact that biologically this person could not have attended KINGSTON College, but we know where her heart is right now. Yeah. We know physically where she is right now as well. She's within the geographical boundaries of the Melbourne campus. So our host today is none other than the lovely Marguerita Douglas Hall, which popularly known as Madam Hall, who is one of the vice principals at KINGSTON College, and she is at the Melbourne campus. Madam Hall, good day and welcome.
Welcome.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you, Madam Hall. We're glad that you could make it. All right, so in true fashion, Madam Hall, we always ask our distinguished guests to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, about your time before you came to KINGSTON College.
Okay. I grew up in Spanish Town, St. Catherine. So initially, I spent my journey at this place that has become renowned for a different reason. In Tospen, my first 11 years were spent in Tospen, and then we moved to Horizon Park. So I went to school in Spanish Town. I went to St. Jacob Prep and then transitioned into high school at St. Jacob High. So by the time I was at St. Jacob High, I was living in Horizon Park. And I want to make that part known because many persons see me and they think that I'm from uptown. An old boy was saying that I want to inculcate certain values in the students because I've come here with my uptown self, right? And I also remember a student, he was ashamed to tell people that he was from Tospen. And when he heard that I came from Tospen, then he was elated to tell people. And he became one of the top spellers in Jamaica, right? And I'm saying that to say this. It doesn't matter where you are from. It's where you're going that is important, right? So I want to just let people know that because not many persons know that. Before I came to KC, I worked at the Jamaica Library Service. And that is where I met my husband, who many persons also don't know is a KC old boy.
All right.
Whoa.
Yes.
We didn't know that.
Exactly. So he was a member of the KINGSTON College choir. And he later went on to manage the choir for a number of years.
Okay.
So all those things just lined up as if this was my path to take, association with KC, one way or the other.
I'm interested.
So
we've heard of
that is
choir masters and I want to connect the dots.
You're breaking up, Pete. I didn't hear that.
No, I was just fine. I was asking, what's your husband's name? The KC old boy.
Oh, Hector Hall.
Oh,
He's Hector Hall.
Yes, we
Class of 1983.
Okay.
Yes. So I worked at the library for a number of years, and then I went on to university. After I left university with my degree in social studies and social sciences and language and literature, which was French,
Okay.
you know, I needed a job. I needed a job, and at the time, only teaching seemed to be available. So teaching chose me rather than I chose teaching. But I saw vacancies at 3 schools, including Kingston College, and I decided that Casey was not going to be one of them.
Ah, so
Yes.
boy,
So
Madam All, Madam All, we have to
wait.
cut this. This is going to be the shortest podcast, Madam All. We have to cut you off right now.
No, you have to hear the rest of the story.
Okay, go ahead, Madam All.
You have to hear
Go
the
ahead.
rest of the story. So I decided that I was going to work at a girls' school because that seemed to be the best of the lot. I lasted 1 term at the girls' school and I resigned because I said, this is not for me. I said, this is not for me at all. But at the girls' school, I met Mrs. Maureen Lewis, who taught at Kingston College. And she said, no, man, you have to come to KC. If you come to KC, you're going to get a different experience.
Yeah.
So I didn't believe her. So after I left the school, I resigned, don't have any work. I resigned because I said, this is definitely not for me. I cannot deal with these girls. I cannot deal with teaching. So I decided I have no work. Then a friend of mine said, try a co-ed school. So I went to Manchester High. And I taught at Manchester High from March of that year, 1993, to July. But I had to come back to Kingston because my daughter was now going to school in September. Miss Douglas, and this is what I tell you when the stars are aligned. Miss Douglas came to Manchester High to do French oral exams. And she was in charge of the choir at that time. And she said, how is it that it allow you to come down to Manchester and KC need French teachers? So you need to come to KC. So I saw the application for KC, the vacancy, and didn't take it. Then Mrs. Lewis told me to come to KC, and I didn't take it. And now Miss Douglas said that I must come to KC. So by the time the term was ending, the principal called me and he said he heard that I wanted to come back to Kingston. And I said, yes. He said, do you have a job? I said, no, I don't have a job. But I hear that KC has a vacancy. He says, okay, let me call the principal there. At that time, it was Major Cohen, and he called the principal, and that was it. And I've been at KC since 1993.
Wow.
So it's as if it was my destiny.
So that makes it roughly, what, 31 years?
31, that would be 32. Yes.
32,
Yes.
Yeah.
When 32, yes.
Yes.
So a third of the 100 years.
So what campus you started at, what grade you started at, and what subject were you teaching?
Okay, I started on the Melbourne campus, and I teaching French. I went to North Street in my second year. Then I came back to Melbourne. Then I was toggling between North Street and Melbourne. So I've always had a foot on either campus. So in 1997, I became grade coordinator. And then, Mrs. Lewis, Maureen Lewis, also had a hand now again in me applying for the vice principal position. You know, she encouraged me to apply for the vice principal position because Miss Douglas was going to leave, Mr. Bryan was going to leave. So there were 2 vacancies at the time. And there's something about preparing for the unknown. even though I did not have a vice principal role in mind, I went and I did the school management course. I did the course in management and school administration ahead of time. So I was prepared for the role.
Yes. Yes.
So how many years were you at KC for? How many years were you teaching before you got that opportunity?
Before I became vice principal became vice principal in 2009.
2009.
Yes.
Wow. So that means you've been doing the vice principal work for 15, 16 years now.
Yes.
Okay. So before we move into that issue of being vice principal, what was teaching like? Because you're coming from that environment of the all-girls schools, that wasn't a good experience. The co-ed school which you moved because your child was going into school. What was the experience like when you came to KC? Because remember Miss Douglas, Mrs. Lewis, everybody tell us it's a different thing. Yeah. What was that experience like when you came to KC?
That made you stay.
All right. I suspect that one, the boys grow on you. The boys grow on you. There's something about them that even though you might get upset today because of how they're behaving or even this minute, first thing, they don't even think they're the ones who cause you to be upset.
Yeah.
The boy, they'll say, Miss, don't let them stress you out, And they're the very ones. They're the very ones who are doing it. And they'll come, and the difference between boys and girls that I find, they'll come and they'll say, Miss, you look nice today, They don't pick on why you look nice. They don't even know why you look nice. They just think that today you look nice. But for them, it's the challenge of pulling the potential from a boy, seeing that he has this in him and you can get him to be at a place that he doesn't even see it yet. And I've often said to the teachers, when I interview teachers for the job, you have to be willing to go the extra mile to let the boy do what he needs to do, even when he doesn't want to do it, because right now, he doesn't know what he needs. So those are the teachers that we want. So it's like you plant a tree and it's now bearing fruit, because I've seen so many of my students who are excelling in Jamaica, overseas, and the world at large, So I can now attest to the fact that, yes, it is important to pull the potential out of that boy because it will bear fruit.
Yeah. And so, well, let me add something that the great Helen Douglas said in regards to similar experience going to the girls' school or going to the boys' school. And I'm just repeating her verbatim. What she says is that the girls will have you up for weeks and the boys forget it within 3 to 5 minutes. Like you said, the same boy who's giving you the problem is saying, no, stress you, don't let them stress you out. We're compared to the girls, they won't talk to you and they'll shrug shoulders and do all these other things in comparison to the boys, where the turnaround time and to get the communication and to get things moving much faster than the girls. So that's what that's what the great Helen Douglas said in comparison with the teachers with boys and girls. So let's make it very clear on the podcast. We're not knocking girls' schools. Let's be very clear, right? We're just talking about the experience, and we're talking about those who can manage and what's best for them. Yeah, because you don't want the girls to feel like, oh, that way, we just want to be clear.
And one of the things that I've come to realize, you have some teachers that are boys teachers, and some teachers that are girls teachers.
Yes.
And I'm a boy teacher. So, yes. And I can tell you, later on, with more experience, while I was on leave, I went to another girls' school to teach. And then I realized for sure that I am not a girls' teacher. As much as I did well with those girls, the experience, it was like cheese to chalk. between teaching girls and boys. So I still didn't want to go to a girls' school to teach.
So on that note, Madam VP, I'm going to ask you a bit of a personal question now.
Yes.
Because you mentioned that your first child was a girl.
Yes.
How was that? How was managing that process as a mother growing a girl and having to deal with boys at an all-boys school? Did you at any point in time see some of the tactics and approaches that you use with the boys? You just use it for your daughter. You're probably a little bit more stern and not take no talk from her. Did that must have happened?
All right. My daughter is a girly girl, right? She's into a whole lot of girl things, but she's also one of those girls that do boys things, but still has the graces of a girl because she's an athlete. She was an athlete, so she was there and she was busy with all different events. So she did track and field, she did netball, she did swimming, she did schools challenge. So she was into a whole lot of things. So it was a mixture. I didn't have to think boy or girl. She was just a full package.
Okay. So she probably made it a little bit easier for you as well.
Yes.
All right. So one of the themes that we get from the other VPs is that in this journey before you take up the administrative role, you were given certain responsibilities. Did that apply to you? Like, was it class coordinator, scheduling? Did you go through that as well?
Yes, I was a grade coordinator. For years, I was a grade 7 coordinator. From 1997 until I became VP, I was grade 7 coordinator. But I always worked with the guidance department. I worked with them on welfare and I worked with them on scholarship. And I still do that because I think those things are very important.
Okay.
A child can't learn, fulfill his full potential if he's hungry. And I know the scholarship program has also helped, those students who need that additional financial help to make them get where they want to go. So I still work closely with the guidance department.
That's good to hear. And so then the follow-up question now, Madam Hall, is when you make that transition from teacher to administrator to becoming VP.
Yes.
And it's a question I ask all the VPs now. What was your leadership style and approach taking on that position? And how much has it changed much from when you started in 2009 to where you are now in 2025?
Okay. I have found that you have to adopt all types of leadership styles at different points in time, right? There are times when you just have to be authoritarian. There are times when you bring persons in and you hear what they have to say and we have a discussion. They're a part of the mix, but there comes a time when you have to make some executive decision. But I find the best solution to any management is to get the involvement of your team. Because if you are leading and there are no followers, then you're just a one-man band, and a school cannot run like that because you don't need somebody who is going to work the exact hours. You need persons who are going to work beyond the hours. So if you just have persons and you say, okay, we start at 7:25 and finish at 2:35, and you have those persons who that is their mandate because you force them to, then you're in trouble. Because there are going to be times when you want someone to stay late, you want them to take on additional duties. So you have to make people feel good about themselves. And one of the things that I treasure that I do as a manager is succession planning. I always try to build the staff in a way that they understand this is not just the coordinator's role, the dean's role. I give them the opportunity to assist in areas that are outside of the rank and file teacher's role. Because at the end of the day, people are going to move on. And if we don't train people now, when other persons move on, you're going to be starting from ground zero. So human resources, you have to build your human resources. You have to make people feel valuable in the school for them to perform at their optimal.
And we just want to say for the record, for those watching the podcast, that Madam Hall is appropriately dressed in purple and white. Initially, I thought that undergarment there was blue, but she corrected me to say it's a shade of purple and she is appropriately dressed.
Yes.
So she's within theme of the podcast as well. So we must say that as well. So Madam Hall, one of the things we try to, what is the relationship like now? Because as an administrator, you are in that little grouping that exists between the school, the student body,
yes,
the teachers,
yes,
and the parents.
yes.
And to a certain extent, you report directly to the principal, and that impacts the board.
Yes.
How do you manage these relationships?
Okay, relationships, whether with one person or a group, has to be managed more or less in the same way. It has to be give and take. And it has to be that I am listening to you. It cannot be that I am just telling you what to do. So it's irrespective of what relationship we're in. We have to be paying attention to each other. Mm-hmm. So even the students, I listen to them. I take time out and I hear what they have to say. Even when they are in the wrong and I hear the stories already, I let them say their side. And then I said, okay, so now that I've heard what you have to say, tell me, what do you think? Do you think that you're wrong? Or do you still hold on to what you came with, you know? So I know parents will come to, and parents are passionate about their children, mm-hmm. whether they are good, bad, or indifferent. So when they come, I understand that. And I try to let them understand that we're on the same page. We have the same goal. We want to fulfill their child's potential. But one thing I insist on is that if the rules are there to be upheld, they're there to be upheld. That's correct. Right? And that is my role. So if we operate in gray areas, we're going to be in trouble. And then I have to be wondering and listen to all stories. So if you give me this as the rule, then this is what I'm going to hold. We can say it with a smile and it's all your package things. But at the end of the day, the rule is the rule. You understand? And it's the same thing with the teachers. We have a handbook. We have the Education Act that we operate from. Okay, and so that's the guidance that we provide for them. Mm-hmm. We provide the guidance for the parents and the students. We provide guidance for the teachers. So it's how we package it and how we speak to persons. But at the end of the day, I have a job to do. And I tell them, when I come through these gates, I am at work. So
And that's good to hear, Madam Hall. So the last point on that in terms of relationships now is, you know, what happens, that interaction between yourself and the principal, Mr. Meyer.
Well, the principal, we have, you know, KC has its unique situation, yes, whereby we have 2 campuses. So much of our communication is via telephone, you know, and almost on a daily basis, we're going to be communicating on different issues, because the vice principal has to have the principals back. And nobody is to spring surprises on the principal, right? So if something happens at Melbourne, the principal is not to hear it on the news.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to be the one to let him know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we work it out and we decide on how we're going to move forward. So that is just it.
And I want to say that for the record, for the entire 100 years of Kingston College, having 2 campuses, we've been very effective in managing them in a way where performance and everything else is still held high. So
Pete, you need to speak in the mic.
sorry, I was saying that over the last 100 years, with KC being around and having the 2 campuses, we've done very well at actually running them in an effective manner where performance, attendance, and all the other things that we look at are still held at a high standard.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah. So that's very good to hear. As we kind of talk to both, I would say, leaders from the different parts of the campuses themselves. But I have a question, and this question we talked about it with Madam Coelho, and we talked about it with Mr. Brown. On the on the Melbourne side where you are, and now to understand there is no difference in VPs, just one VP.
Yes.
What are some gaps that you see that you could probably say, hey, you know what, this is something that we're working on, this is something we need help from or help with? As you know, you and I talk a lot and we try to help out where we can, but what are some other things that you would probably say, hey, this is what we're doing to bridge this gap, or this is what we desire to help bridge the gap?
Okay. One of the things that we have been discussing, Pete, is the psychosocial part of the students being. And it has always been a challenge, but I find more so now than ever, because I think the economy has helped us now to widen that gap, because parents are not at home. Either they're at work for odd hours, long hours, or they're studying, trying to bridge the gap between work and school. And then the students, they're exposed to the internet and all that the internet has to offer. And they come now with some issues that we didn't have before, and plus the issues that we used to have before. So we need help with the psychosocial. And when whatever happens in the society also affects the school.
Yes.
So we have the aggression. We have the aggression out there that is coming into the school, and we need to have programs, that will help the students more so from a psychosocial area than any other. Because the academics, that can be fixed. If the children come here ill-prepared socially, psychologically, it's going to be a difficult task to get through to them academically.
Yeah.
So outside of the, I know you do the morning devotions and there's a guidance counselor there, what other options do you think the school could employ to address this issue?
All right. I know that we have one group of old boys, the Fortis Pavilion, that they're offering mentorship programs. And the ministry is now offering some assistance with the psychosocial program. Okay. But I think we need some persons that we can send students to for testing, for just therapy at no cost to them, because the persons who I find need it most, they can't afford it. Therapy is expensive, right? So
now, does this have to be local? What about how can old boys across the globe mentor a student at school where, you know, he's probably not there physically, take him out, etc., but he's available to have a conversation? Is that an opportunity?
I'm sure we can always work out a program, whether locally or online, because COVID has taught us many things.
Yes, yes.
COVID has taught us that face-to-face is not the only way to go. So now everywhere is closed. Everywhere is closed.
I
Right
agree.
now.
I agree.
Right now.
Yeah, yep, I
Yes,
agree. Totally,
we're doing
totally.
this podcast and we're not in the same space.
That's right. That's right. That's
Not
right.
in the same physical space.
That's right. So I'm going to say this out there that I'll collaborate with you. You know, you and I talk, you know, very well. So
Yes.
let's put some thoughts together and see what we
Yes.
can put together. And see what we can help to close that gap as much as possible. I'm
Right.
going to say that for all the other old boys out there, you've heard me say it before, right? I visit the school a lot when I'm in the island, try to make sure the boys are wearing their V's and just little things. And when they see you around, they really feel good to know that this person here went to KC, he's
Yes.
back, he's a part of us, and he's just connecting with the boys. So I said it before, I've adopted 8 Gibson. So, you know, my goal is to go see that class through to graduation. And, you know, I have to come and give them a visit like while I'm here. So I want to say that on the podcast for other old boys who are listening, to say you can get involved in very small ways.
Yes. And that does not mean that we still don't have the need for the academics,
Yep.
nor the physical plan to be upgraded, nor all the other things. It doesn't mean that those are not necessary or needed.
Agree. Yep.
All right, so Madam Hall, another important question that we'd like to hear, and we would like to be answered, is, you know, was there any individual or a group of individuals that left a lasting impression on you? It could have been a student, old boy, a fellow administrator, colleague, teacher, or coach, administrator, parent. Anybody that left a lasting impression. You can name a few names, and like other guests, you can apologize to those who you have left out. So I don't want nobody after seeing this here call you and cuss you out. Say, oh, you know, say nothing about me, I'm help you do this, I'm do that. I buy you one patty one day when you're hungry. Then you can think that. And
for that reason, I don't want to start naming names. I've mentioned a few persons already who influenced my being in this role. But I've had some good experiences here. I've had some persons that made me want to leave the work. And, you know, it is so amazing. I tell people, I saw one of my students, last month it was, he came to do a presentation, and I'm saying, his group, when I just came to KC, if I didn't have my daughter and needed the work, I would leave the work. Because those 2 classes, those 2 9 classes that I got that year, right?
That was your baptism of fire.
And I tell you, the fire did hot. And one now is a prominent lawyer.
Nice.
Right? He's from Waterhouse. So he will know himself because he was in 9 the Carteret.
Nice.
So
nice.
And then I had 9 Forest. One he is in the fire brigade. So they will know themselves. But they have done extremely well. So when I came, those boys that I met, they were a real challenge. But there was a class that I had. If you didn't get 100%, you were not going to be the first in that class. That class that I met, many of them are doctors now, they're engineers, they're lawyers. And that class made me dig deep because I could not just use the textbook. They would go and do all the assignment in the textbook before given. So you could not give them the assignments out of the textbook because they had already done it. I've
Mhm.
not had a class like that since, right? So those are some boys that and I have them on a key ring. I still have them on a
Nice.
key ring. So
Nice.
those boys I remember. I had a form class also. And those boys, they might even remember this, but I remember one Teacher's Day, they made a presentation in front of the whole student body to me for Teacher's Day. I was their grade 9 form teacher, and they too have done extremely well. So those are some memories that I have of some boys that might remember, but yes.
You know what you call a class like that though? The one with the ones that always work in advance.
Yes.
That's what you call the Big Bang Theory. Where it happened once in a lifetime. You know
once
that
in a lifetime.
you know that
Once
sitcom
in
that
a
named Big Bang
lifetime.
Theory with the nerd named Sheldon and him three friend them.
Yes,
That's them set of boys there. But
yes.
you know, God bless them. We're happy for that Fortis class that you got as well. You know,
Yes.
so we can appreciate that. So, but
Yes.
but
So
yes.
I've had a mixture. I've had a mixture of students.
Were there, apart from those moments where that class or those two classes recognized your effort, were there any other occasions that were, you know, memorable to you whilst at the school?
All right. In recent years, I was recognized by New York Inc., the New York chapter.
Yes, I heard about that.
That was major. Let me tell you why that was major. It was not just the recognition, but they invited my husband and my son also to the event, right? My son is also a KC old boy.
Okay, well, he has no choice. I was going to say that one.
Yes, so the fact that they didn't just invite me, they saw it necessary to let my family come and celebrate with me. I really appreciated that.
Nice.
So
good job, KC boy, New York.
And his team can take a bow on that one. I've told them, but I'm now saying it publicly.
Yes. All right, good job. And that was when in Perry leadership, right? Because I remember that.
No, that was after Perry left.
After Perry left, okay.
Yes, it was last year.
Okay, all right, under Dwayne. Okay, yeah,
Montague.
Yeah, we spoke to Dwayne. Yep. All right, good stuff. Yeah, that's nice.
Well, Madam Hall, you know, I want to say thank you for coming, for making yourself available, for being present for our thing here. And it's really truly an honor to see the dedication of that you give to the school, the commitment, the mere fact that in the end KC chose you. We didn't leave it up to you to choose KC. So you know, we got you here, and really appreciate the sterling service that you have given to the school. And we hope that you continue to do that as long as you so desire. What we ask of you, Madam Hall, is for two things. For one, for you to wish KC happy 100, and for two, to leave a positive message for the current student body and staff that we have there, administrators, ancillary teachers, coaches, everybody there, and persons watching. So, ball in your court, Madam Hall.
All right. I will do that shortly, Marlon. But before I do that, I don't want to leave this podcast without talking about my involvement with the table tennis team and the choir.
Yes, please tell us about that.
Yes, because I've been with the choir since Miss Douglas left.
Yeah.
Right. That also was thrust on me. Did not choose that one. And then my husband and I worked together with the choir for years, right? Until he left as the manager, and I continued as the staff rep. You know, going to Washington as on a major trip there, Jamaica 50th anniversary. So that was major achievement with the choir. Recently, they were awarded by the RJR group of companies for their achievements. So that has been good. They won the silver, the Musgrave Award, silver medal. And where the table tennis is concerned, I usually accompany them overseas to tournaments and training sessions just to ensure that they get that international exposure. So I've been working with them for years. I've been working with the table tennis.
I understand the choir link, Madam Hall, but how did you get linked to table tennis?
The table tennis, I don't even know. Some of my students play table tennis like Odingo Mitchell way back in the days, and I used to go and watch the matches. And then one of my students, he just came to me and said he heard about a tournament overseas and if I could help them fund the tournament. And then I started making some contacts for them and they were able to go overseas to this tournament. And then I started working with the team. When my son came to KC, incidentally, he played table tennis and he was on the choir. And we didn't coerce him to do any of those things.
Sure, Madam. Sure. We're not here to judge you. We're not here to judge you, Madam. You run your ship. You run your ship tight. Yeah. Do your thing. We're not judge you. Do your thing.
Yes.
But I did hear about that. I'm actually... Go ahead, Madam. Go ahead.
All right. Now to KC and its 100th year. I must say that there's no other school like KC. So I wish KC all this best in this 100th year. And it is just a matter of being greater because over the years, KC has just done so many wonderful things, you know. Persons continue to say that KC boys love to show off, but I'm saying, if you ask me of my achievement and I tell you that I won schools challenge the most and I won champs the most and I won, it's just about telling you the facts. So it's not about showing off, it's either it is. And why would you want to participate in a sports or an event and not to win?
Come on now.
So I just say continue doing what we're doing because we have to let our boys know that nothing is too great for them to achieve. There's nothing, absolutely nothing. So whether it's in the classroom, on the field, on the track, on the court, in a little room where nobody is seeing you, whatever it is, greatness is in your grasp. You can have it.
Yes.
Right? And don't let persons tell you otherwise. And it's not about being show off or not being modest. That's not it.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, we're just winners, and that is the bottom line, and nothing is wrong with that. And we need to let people understand that.
Yes.
If you're a winner, you're a winner. And that is where we want the students' head to be.
Yes.
You might not always win, and I tell them, I said the person who wrote the motto had in mind that you're not always going to win. That is why the motto says the brave may fall but never yield, because they know that at some point in time you're not going to achieve the goal, but the goal must always be that you're going to head for the best.
Never give up.
But if you don't reach there this time, then next time. So nothing is wrong with that.
Wow.
And we need to let not just the KC students know, we need to let the whole Jamaica know nothing is wrong with striving for the best.
Wow, and wow. I want to end this by saying Spanish Town she born and there she come from. And I will just go and leave that one right there. You've heard it from the great. We call her Madam Hall, Vice Principal of the Kingston College High School. One who, like you heard from my co-host, Big Brother Marlon, had no interest of coming to KC. But since 1993, it's one of the best decisions that has selected her or chosen her. And you've heard it. Husband went to KC, son went to KC, and I'm going to say her daughter is also a part of KC. You've heard some stories. So We thank you for your time, Madam Hall. We appreciate it. Continue to do the awesome work. I love working with you and will continue to work with you. And it's just good to see what you're doing for the students when we talk about transitioning them onto North Street. So I believe you have one of the most critical jobs across the Kingston College institution because you touch us first.
Yes.
And then we will move on. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. I know I'll see you soon, but we end every podcast in a very fine fashion. And that is to say the greatest motto that came out of the greatest institution. And like we said earlier, because your staff, we don't force you, but we force the old boys to say it. But join us if you can. And it goes like this.
Before he starts, Madam Hall, it's your duty to say it on behalf of your husband and your son. So no pressure.
Okay.
There you
You
go.
don't have to say it as an administrator.
Is being twisted.
But you're representing the two Mr. Halls right now.
And my brother-in-law also came to KC.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
There you go.
It's inundated.
So you have the duty. So let's go, Madam Hall.
Here we go. Fortis, Cadere, CEDRE,
non-Potest.
The brave may
fall, but
never
yield.
What good, Madam Hall. We appreciate you. Cheers. And see you on the next 1925 and Beyond podcast when we talk about KC 100 year celebration.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome.